stream. That's right. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me, of course, Craig Mish. Craig, we've been cycling through NFL, college football.
That's right. I'm your host, Howard Bender.
We are
with me,
almost there. We are almost
Craig
ready to
Mish.
start. How
Craig,
exciting. We've been cycling.
Right, how excited is this?
I'm very excited for it. I'm excited to do these live streams and look, we ended at the Super Bowl, and I couldn't wait to get back started again. So, I mean, look, for me, it's a little different than a lot of people having look. There aren't a lot of things that I root for anymore. I talk about this a lot. What I root for are my fantasy teams to do well, the teams I bet on to win, and the Gators. And so the Gators play Saturday, and they open up the season against Miami. And you can only imagine living in South Florida, where the University of Miami is, and I'm a Gator living in South Florida. Now, there are a huge amount of alumni from the University of Florida where I am here, but obviously most people who follow me because of South Florida sports, especially on social media and things like that. But that being said, that's what I'm super excited about Saturday night. And, of course, we'll get into the game a little bit, but Miami has a new coach. They have a new quarterback. The Gators are big favorites in the game. So it's kind of like the right time, you would think, for Florida to catch Miami. They also just announced that they're going to be playing a home-and-home for the first time in, I think, almost 10 years. In 2024 and 2025, they'll play a game in Gainesville and a game in Miami, too. So there's a rivalry game. It's the premier game in all of college football on Saturday night. And then, of course, we have Arizona and Hawaii. We'll talk a little bit about those games, but really more on Friday night we'll do in college. And I know here on this live stream, we got the player props finally out on DraftKings. They released them, so we thought that for those people who can do it and who can get in on it, then we would help you out a little bit tonight on some of those.
Now, how do you usually like this? I mean, I know that one of the things that we've talked about as far as picking out which wins totals, which props we like to play, we like to do the opposite ends of the spectrum. Some that we think are too low, some that we think are too high. Where are you looking? Are you doing that exact same strategy when you're looking at passing yards, when you're looking at touchdowns? Are you looking for those? Or are you more looking at it from, this is my analysis of the team, therefore I think this?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. A good example of one of the ones that I hit on when I was doing my baseball show was
when was that?
You ever heard of it? Yeah.
Did you do a baseball show?
I still do one when I was doing my baseball show on satellite radio. Remember that old show? Yeah, I don't know. 10 years? Who knows?
I think I fell off my dinosaur and cracked my wooden underwear the last time you were on those airwaves.
It was right after Prop Bet Radio, if you would remember that. Yeah.
That was riveting stuff.
Yeah, that was good stuff. But so one of the ones that I was so sold on, and I'll explain to you at the time, and it happens to be a win, and look, I'll tell you when I'm wrong, was under 49.5 steals. I think it was 49.5 steals for any player in Major League Baseball this year. And I remember the conversation that I was having at the time, and it was with Jim. And I don't know that Jim was on it one way or the other. But my point is that it only requires one leg injury to Trey Turner or Raul Mondesi for that thing to go under. And for guys that really are only about that, I have to buy in on some of that injury factor. So, Howard, a lot of what I did for these, I would say probably like 30-40% of the futures were based a little bit on health. And health is a huge part of these props. In fact, out of all the props, I would guarantee that if you bet, now look, I don't know, the game could change this year. They could start calling, like we have a juice ball in baseball. They could start not calling any penalties this year. We wouldn't know about it right now. We're going to have to wait and see. But going under on a lot of the yardages, maybe not touchdowns, but a lot of the yardages. We know there's going to be a lot of scoring in the NFL. But going under, especially with wide receivers and running backs, if there's an injury and they miss a week or two, you win. You're done. You win. And so I feel like some of these totals, they have that in there. And
they've kind of in, absolutely.
Yeah, but some of them, they don't. And so it wasn't really more about that as it was opposed to doing a little bit of a deeper dive in research. The other thing that I looked at, too, which I think is huge, and this goes for all sports, baseball, basketball, football too, is that at the end of a football season, it's kind of the beginning of the next season. Yeah, there is some turnover in the NFL for sure, but guys who perform in the late part of the season are likely to perform or at least get that opportunity to perform the following year. So I don't really look at September and October as much as I do November and December, and we'll factor the weather in too. That can be a factor somewhat too.
For sure.
But teams that played well at the end of last year and their players played well at the end of last year, I think have an opportunity to do it again. And there is one player I think that's heavily involved in that process that we'll talk about here as well.
All right. Well, fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some player props for quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. Maybe splash in some tight ends there, here and there. I think they're listed on some of the receiving yard props and some of the touchdown props. But we're also going to talk potential Super Bowl picks. We're also going to talk about potential MVPs and comeback players of the year. So we're going to kind of dive into the money lines on a number of those players there. We're going to make our own selections as well, and hope that we can kind of guide you along. And then, as Craig said, we'll also discuss the early lines on those two college games here in week 0. I think we should start with the player props, though.
Okay.
Unless you feel, Craig.
No, let's do it.
You know,
what position you want to do? Quarterback, receiver?
I
love
do the
it.
Gator thing.
I love
I
it.
can do the Gator thing for you.
Yeah, and again, there's only 2 games. We won't go crazy this week with college football. It'll be more for next week. And on Friday or Thursday's live stream, or Friday, depending on when we do it this week, we'll take a look at some of the games for next Thursday also. We'll get a little bit ahead of it. But rest assured, next Tuesday, we got a full board of college football games. So we will be heavily involved in those spreads and those lines and everything there too. So where do you want to start? Running back, quarterback, or receiver?
Let's start off with the quarterbacks here. Why not? Okay. I mean, because you know what? Because a pick of mine as far as passing yards goes exactly with what you were talking about with the injury bug and whether or not that's going to happen. And I'll say it flat out. Andrew Luck, 4,400 or 4,450 and a half passing yards. I'm going to take the under. Yeah, on that one there, because listen, is he going to play the first game? We don't know. Is he going to play the second game? We don't know. If he misses 2 games, that's going to cut significantly into the passing yards. And then let's not forget how much they're going to end up needing to potentially lean on the run beyond that in order to get him more acclimated into the season and get him into midseason form. Marlon Mack could end up with a little bit of an extra workload. So for me, right off the bat, when I look at the passing yards here, I see Andrew Luck's number. You know, it's the highest passing total of anybody not named Mahomes. So give me the under on Andrew Luck here, Craig.
Yeah, and it seems reasonable. And by the way, these you would think that these are not on the board, but they are right now on DraftKings. The other thing to keep in mind is just like any player prop, there's always going to be a maximum amount that you can put on these. It's not like you can put $10,000 on a prop online. It just doesn't exist. So, a couple hundred probably would be the max here. I'll go also under. I'll go under on Winston's yards at 4,300. We talked about him on last week's live stream. I just don't know how this can be so high when he's never done it before. It's in the top 5. Bruce Arians' offense always produces great quarterbacks, and I get it. But again, 1 missed game, 1 benched game, and this goes way under the total. He played 16 games, back-to-back seasons, 2015, 2016. I could make the case at that point Winston was on the rise at that point, and he was right at 4,000 yards. So 300 is not far away from that, but that would indicate that he has a career season. So I am going to go under the 4,300. There's just not a lot of trust with me with him. If Arians makes him into a great quarterback, then so be it. I'll be proven wrong. But I'll go under the 4,300 on him, and I think that he's out of Tampa after this year.
It's very possible, and it's been the big question that I've had. Everybody's talking about how great Chris Godwin's going to be, and it's a breakout season for him. The question is that what happens when Bruce Arians gets tired of the nonsense from Jameis Winston and gets tired of the turnovers on a regular basis, and then what? He's going to turn it over to Blaine Gabbert? Yeah, I'm with you on that. Now,
I mean, they went to Fitzpatrick last year. And I know that it's very easy to say now, well, hey, if Fitzpatrick came in and he went 4-0 or 5-0, but did you really think at the time that was going to happen? And Dirk Cutter went to Fitzpatrick there. Who's to say that they may go to Gabbert? I mean, you don't know. So it's unlikely, but I don't see Winston changing for anyone. And there's no doubt that there will be a game this year that Winston's numbers will be as good as any quarterback in the NFL. He'll throw a 450, 500-yard game. He's going to do it. I mean, this is who he is. He'll have that monster game, but it'll probably be in a game against the Saints where they're down like 41-3, and he has to bring them back. So I'll go under that one.
All right, one of the ones that I'm going to surprisingly go on the over side here, Deshaun Watson. It's 4,500. Now, last year, Watson, who spent his entire time running for his life and got sacked, like a league high 56 times or something like that, still threw for over 4,100 yards. Now I'm looking at this offense. I'm looking at a rebuilt offensive line. I'm looking at healthy targets in Hopkins and Will Fuller. They're going to get Jordan Thomas, their tight end, involved on that. They make a trade and a big trade, in order to end up getting Duke Johnson. And really invested what could end up being a third-round pick in Duke Johnson. That's going to help the passing game for sure as far as that goes. I mean, I don't understand how you could leave it at just 4,000 unless you think that Deshaun Watson's just going to end up, handing the ball off a ton. So I have to go on the over on this one here, just from what I know about the Texans.
Sure. Yeah, I don't like Houston at all this year, but it wouldn't shock me to see him go over that number at all. As a matter of fact, I think they'll probably rank toward the bottom of all running teams in the NFL. Lamar Miller, he plays his 16 games. He has 2 great games, and the rest are 10 carries for 30 yards. I mean, this is just kind of who he is. He was like that in Miami. He's like that now with Houston. And you're right. The only other option they have there is Duke Johnson, who's more of a pass catcher, really, at this stage in the NFL than he is a runner. So, so I could definitely see that as well. I could see him having a monster season and then being bad. So that's easy for me to do.
Sure.
I'm going to go to touchdown passes. I'll go over 28.5 touchdown passes for Carson Wentz.
You just took mine.
Of the Philadelphia Eagles. Did I steal yours?
No, I mean, listen, I saw that you had it on your list. I couldn't. How do I?
Hey, whoever sends the email first, whoever sends the email first gets to do it. So
I think this is one that our viewers should be like, oh, well, they're both on this one here.
There it is, double down.
Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
So look, if Wentz is healthy, the last 2 seasons he goes over this number. 11 games last year, he threw 21 touchdowns. Okay, so that's an over if he plays all 16 games. I understand injury is a factor, but with quarterback, it's a little bit different. It's, fluky injuries with him. 2 years ago, 13 games, 33 touchdowns. So even with missing those games at the end of the year, and then, of course, Foles helped him out, he still ended up having a monster season. So even if Wentz misses a game or 2, I still think he gets to 30 touchdowns. And look, is he Brady? No. Rodgers, Breeze, Mahomes? Probably not. But all those guys have touchdown totals in the 30s, so this feels low. 2 games against the Giants, 2 games against the Redskins, a game against Miami, game against Detroit, not a terrible schedule. So I'm going to say he throws somewhere between 30 to 35 touchdown passes. Here's the truth. If Wentz doesn't and he gets hurt, well, then Philadelphia made a mistake with him because obviously he'll be an injury-prone quarterback at that point. You can give him a mulligan 2 years ago. I think you could even give him a mulligan a little bit last year. If a quarterback gets hurt 3 years in a row, there's an issue. But I'm going to bank on that being a little bit flukish. And I don't think that Philadelphia would have let Foles go and not really have any backup quarterback, by the way, whatsoever going into the season. So I'll go over 28.5 touchdown passes for Carson Wentz.
Well, they had, but now they've just lost both of them to injuries. Ironically, there
McCown is the guy now.
McCown is now the guy there. Now he's the backup. All right, well, that was my third one there, was the touchdown total for Carson Wentz. I'm on the over for 28.5 as well. You got one more for quarterbacks?
That was it. That was those were the 2 that I liked.
Okay, beautiful. Then let's slide over into the running back world here. Again, this is probably me just being more bullish on the offense than anything else here, but I also want to see the money line on Dalvin Cook and the over on 11.25.5.
Yeah, I have that one too, but they're both minus 110. About like you're risking 110 or 115.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm still, because I'm going to pair this up actually with his touchdown total, which is 6, because I think that's super low. So I'm definitely in on the over there, and I'm kind of tilted on the over for the yardage as well. So call me bullish on the Vikings, Mr. Rah-Rah Purple People Eaters, but that's right there. Dalvin Cook over the 11.25.5 on the yards, over 6 touchdowns.
That's our first big disagreement, because I'm going under with Dalvin Cook, and it's not that I think that Cook has a bad year. It's just I really like their backup, and I think he's going to play, and I think they're going to try and keep him healthy. So I mean, Howard, he had one 100-yard game all last season. and 2 consecutive years of injuries. So it's not that I think that he has a bad year. I just think that they preserve him a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with this guy rushing for 1,000 yards and Madison rushing for 600 or 700. I think that can happen. Now, look, he is a rookie. I don't know how well he blocks. I've only watched what everybody else has watched in the preseason. Maybe my opinion would change this next week, but I do have to say that Cook has looked a little bit injury prone since he's been with the Vikings, and the player they have behind him is not Latavius Murray anymore. This is not just the guy you bring in for short yardage. I think that the kid could be a player. So, look, Cook was drafted very high by Minnesota. They're going to give him every opportunity. But if after 3 weeks this guy only has 150 yards and Madison has 30 and they're splitting carries, this is going to be tough to go over on. So I'm going to go under there. We'll just have a disagreement on this one.
Sure. I'm fine with that. If you don't like making money, Craig, I do.
I don't like making money. I hate it.
It's the worst in the world. All right. So, well, there are 2 of mine. You poo-pooed the yardage one. Dalvin Cook on the over for 6 touchdowns for me. I'm assuming you're just going to poo-poo that one as well.
No, the touchdowns I could go with. He's the goal line guy.
Okay. All right. Well, then
Madison is not getting goal line carries. Yeah, this one I like a lot. Chris Carson over 1,000 yards. I mean, his total is 1,050. I mean, down the stretch. We sharing that one too? But
come on, the Carson love.
Listen, Chris Carson had 3 consecutive games down the stretch of 110 yards or more. So again, you're looking at last year. You're going into this year. His first 2 games last year in the timeshare, he had 51 and 24 yards. So think about how many yards per game this guy got after they realized he should be the starter after the second week. He's still 24 years old. They are running offense. They really don't have a lot of wide receivers. He was last year, this is the key number, he was on the field last year 52% of Seattle's offensive snaps. You know that number is going way up this season, 4%, 5% more. That is huge. I think Carson may end up being top 3 in the NFL in rushing this year. I am going way over that 1,000 yards. I think he gets 1,400, 1,500 in his sleep. Easy one.
Craig, let me ask you a question here. What has 2 thumbs and has been investing in Chris Carson heavily, not just this year, but the year before as well? This guy.
Yeah, he's great. I honestly didn't realize how good he was at the end of last year. I didn't know. And now I look at the running backs behind him, and I look at the share. I mean, 52%. That's low, man. Like they could give him 60% of offensive snaps. Now, look, being in on third down, I don't know. I mean, is that something he can do? We're going to find out in a big way this year. But yeah, I love that one. The other one that I have,
it's been great that Brian Schottenheimer, the offensive coordinator, is like, man, this dude's catching passes. He's got great hands. We're all in on him.
My big drafts that I have, my big fantasy drafts coming up, I got to make sure I get him, not worry about so much of the first round. Well, this guy could be a first round pick. I don't know why he's not going in the first round.
Tell my boy JT, he wants a lot of Dalvin Cook and Chris Carson. There you go. You just tell JT that he needs to stick.
I don't know when that draft is. I don't even know what's going on with him. Okay.
Chris Carson, by the way, I have him as an over on my touchdown list here.
You should.
It's 7.5 is the mark.
You should, but that's a little bit shaky there too because they want to get Penny involved. You never know. He could end up being that guy. I don't know. But the yardage I love. Touchdown wise, Devonta Freeman. Where are you going? Touchdown. I got Devonta Freeman under 7.5. I know last year was a lost season for him. I'm reading all of these glowing reports. He looks amazing. He looks fantastic. He's never been better. I get that. But this is Howard. This is his 6th year in the league. How many running backs make it 2 years 6, by the way, as a starting running back? And if you go back in history, it's not really positive toward that. He hasn't had more than 7 touchdowns in any season since 2016. That's 3 years ago. I know Tevin Coleman is gone. But I think that the Falcons do the same thing with Ito Smith or someone else. I think they give the goal line carries to somebody else. And so this is kind of me looking at a player who was injured, not sure if he comes back to form. I think they'll be a little careful with him. And the yards are just too low for me to go under with him. And I mean, 850 yards, that's dangerous. I'll stay away from that. But in terms of touchdowns, if at the end of the season, Devonta Freeman, based on where he's being drafted, ended up with 900 yards and 5 touchdowns, that's pretty much what you think he's going to do. That's under his touchdown mark of 7.5. Every other game, if he scores a touchdown, he gets 900 yards rushing and let's say 350, 400 yards receiving and a touchdown or 2. It's pretty much what you're expecting on the year. He's like a late RB2, early running back 3 flex. I'm going under 7.5 touchdowns for Devonta Freeman this year.
Okay. Listen, I can't. It's not like I'm going to sit here and dispute it. You make a good case as far as them utilizing Ito Smith. There's a lot that needs to happen there in Atlanta. I battled back and forth on Twitter with somebody about Devonta Freeman. I'm not going to hate on him at all. I do think that there's a situation in Atlanta that they are starting to clean up a little bit, and that is the damage that Steve Sarkisian did to that offensive program over the last 2 seasons. I mean, it was garbage 2 years ago, and then Freeman was hurt last year. So the question is does Freeman bounce back? Is he capable of doing it? And now that we're bringing in Dirk Cutter to run this offense, is he going to go back to the zone blocking scheme that they need to do? He says yes. They don't have the offensive line to power block anyway. So it's an interesting situation here. I can understand why you would want to go on the under there. I'm not, fully.
You don't like it either way. Yeah, it's okay. And look, the other thing for me too is, again, even when Tevin Coleman was hurt and Freeman was there, it was like Jacquizz Rodgers. Like there was always like another guy involved in that offense. So just because I think that most people would look at it and they would say, hey, but Coleman's gone, so that number is going to go up. Well, why did they set the number at 7.5 then? Why did they set their yardage number at 850? It's not because Freeman's coming back and getting 1,500 yards. I mean, they set the number because they want action on both sides. So I'll go under on that one. Wide receiver, where do you want to start?
I'll stay in Atlanta here. I'll go with Calvin Ridley, 825.5. I'm going to go with the over on this one here. For me, you want to talk about injuries. I love Julio Jones, but does Julio Jones always stay on the field? No, he doesn't. He's got a chronic foot issue. When he's on the field, he's going to draw that double coverage, and Matt Ryan's going to have to hit Calvin Ridley. When Julio isn't on the field, they're going to have to lean on Calvin Ridley in the passing game there. I'm not saying this dude's going to be like a 1,300-yard receiver, but does he have the ability to crack 900 yards this year? I think he does. I'm going to go with the over on that one.
Yeah, it feels low, and again, the Falcons, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of pass offense, at least according to some of what I read, have the softest schedule in the first 6 or 7 weeks of the year. So that definitely plays into it. And look, Julio Jones, to his credit, always seems like he's hurt, but always ends up getting up and getting back on the field. Maybe this is the year that he misses a game or two. He's getting older as well. My first one I'll go with is under 1,200 yards for Keenan Allen on the Chargers. He's gone over 1,200 yards once in his career. He's never played 16 games. He's kind of already starting the season a little bit iffy. My guess is he plays. But I feel like we've been playing this, is Keenan Allen going to play or not play, for years. So I bet against health with him. He missed 15 games one season, 8 another. It would not be a huge upset to see him only have 1,000 yards this year. And it just feels like 1,300's a lot for him. The Chargers don't have a lot of great options on the side of him, so the assumption is, okay, they'll just throw to Keenan Allen every time. But I'll say under. He's had a hard time staying healthy through the year, so under.
He's had a hard time staying healthy through the years. He works out of the slot. Mike Williams is a much bigger presence, especially particularly in the red zone. So I'm with you on that one there, for sure. One that I was kind of looking at here, and I'm kind of here's my dilemma, Craig.
Okay.
Is that I want to look at this Minnesota passing game, and I think the 1,000 yards for Stephon Diggs is too low. I think the Adam Thielen 1,200 is a little on the high side there. But the question is that, I think I buy more into Stephon Diggs being on the over of the 1,000 yards than I do. Because, listen, you look at the number of targets that we've seen between the two over the last couple of seasons when Kirk Cousins took over. It was actually leaning more towards Stephon Diggs than anything else. You take Adam Thielen, you work him in the slot, it's one thing, but every time he moves to the outside, which is something that the Vikings have been talking about doing this year, the numbers have suffered immensely. Like the cover, a slot corner can't keep pace with him, but you give him one of the tough cover corners on the outside, and all of a sudden, the coverage is a little tighter. I would probably lean towards the Diggs instead of the Thielen one, because I do think that Thielen is still a good, solid guy over the middle there. But Diggs over 1,000 yards, I feel like it's almost like an easy one for me. That I just feel is too low.
Well, I'll tell you this: if Dalvin Cook has a monster season, it's unlikely that all three of these offensive players that we're talking about are going over.
Correct.
But that being said, Diggs has an easier potential to go over because he can catch a 40 or 50-yard touchdown and pad stats, which is not something that Thielen can really do. But Thielen was the target monster of all time last year. And so, therefore, his number went over as well. I probably don't have a strong opinion on it either way. Probably just something that I would pass on that one. Over for me on Michael Thomas's yards of the Saints. He had 1,400 yards last season. Why is this number less? I'm not really sure. What I like about him, he gets those juicy matchups last year. 27 catches, 270 yards against Tampa Bay. 10 catches, 160 yards against Atlanta. He plays against the Rams again. He had 200 yards against them last season. So you're talking about already like 6 games halfway there with still 10 games to go. He would only need 950 yards in 12 games. That's less than 80 yards a game. That's not much. No cold weather games at all on the Saints schedule this season. Michael Thomas, to me, if he's not the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL, he's certainly number 2 or number 3. He's in the conversation for sure. So, yeah, I mean, injuries always could play a factor with any player. But I do feel like this is a pretty, over bet for me here. I mean, I don't know. Why would he have less yards this year than last year? I'm not really sure. But I'll go over the 1,250.
All right. I can dig it.
And the dog agrees. So that's good news.
The dog. Somebody's fighting outside there.
The only bet I'm guaranteed on is Michael Thomas is over right there.
All right. You've got one more here. Talk to me. Touchdown total here. Patriots wide receiver action.
Yeah, I'm going under on Julian Edelman, under 6 touchdowns. I know that number seems real low, but I think this is a number that they're trying to drag you to the over on this one. It's got to be. Look, I know he has a finger injury. I'm not really worried about that. It has nothing to do with it. I know he hasn't played at all and may not play at all in the preseason. 33-year-old wide receiver. There's only one in the NFL that's still doing it. That's Larry Fitzgerald. And look, there's been Jerry Rice, there's been Terrell Owens, and Edelman's not really in that category yet. He'll be there like in a year. But if you look at historically the charts of wide receivers, once they hit 32, 33 years old, there's a huge drop-off in how they perform. So the other part of this, too, is that the Patriots, I mean, their schedule, to me, is so easy. And late in the season, and the Jets may be better, and Buffalo may be okay, but, I mean, the Patriots are going to win this division by a lot, and I don't think they're going to have anything to play for in the last couple of games unless they're trying to chase Kansas City for the best overall record, which is certainly possible. If it is Kansas City, maybe it's somebody else. So I realize that he missed games to suspension last year, so his numbers were down. Gronk is not there, too, but this is me betting against an older receiver in the NFL. Look, Edelman's career in terms of touchdowns and winning Super Bowl MVP had a phenomenal playoffs, by the way. 1 million yards, 1 million catches, no touchdowns, by the way, for Edelman also in the playoffs. This is just one of those things where I see like a Welker type drop-off. I think that eventually it's going to happen. I don't want to be on board when it does. It wouldn't shock me to see him catch 4 or 5 touchdowns or even 6 this year, but I'll go under that number, and I'll expect that other guys on New England steps up. I know Jacoby Myers is a name that we're hearing a lot about. We'll have to see if Josh Gordon is on the field.
Josh Gordon's back, man. Come on.
We'll have to see about that. I have no idea if that'll work out or not. But I'm going to bet against age here, and I'm going to go under 6. I wouldn't bet against anything with Larry Fitzgerald. He's proven it year after year, and he's still going strong. And that's like betting against Jerry Rice when he was 38. It's like betting against Terrell Owens when he was 35, 36. But remember, and Art Monk is another one who played at a very old age. But think about that. Those are 3 or 4 names out of thousands of players, and the rest of them all bombed. And look, I just don't want to be that guy on when Roddy White, it's like a good example of a guy. Roddy White went into a year, he was like this age, and he's on the other side of Julio Jones, he'll be great, and it was boom, and it was over. So I don't know. We'll see if it is. But either way, I mean, Edelman could still catch a lot of passes over the middle. He could still catch 80 passes for 900 yards and not score. So I'll go under on the touchdowns. I wouldn't touch yards with him.
Okay. Listen, I can dig that. All right. So there you go. Wide receiver props. Done quarterback, running back. All right. Let's move on. Let's keep rolling here. Let's talk NFL MVP. Now, I'm sure you've done the research here, Craig, and you can tell me exactly how many times.
Every time.
A quarterback. Next.
Yeah, it's going to be a quarterback. So Holmes is about 5-1. Rodgers is 12-1. It's Wentz 12-1. Drew Brees is 20-1. Brady's 20-1. I don't know. Do you want to take a stab even at this beyond Mahomes?
I mean, beyond Mahomes, yeah, I can definitely do that. I think it's going to come down to
Did I see you want to put Cam Newton in this thing?
I do want to. You know what?
50-1.
50-1. It's 50-1. I like this team.
That's a huge number.
It's a great number, though. Listen, I'm not talking about throwing my mortgage payment on it. Okay, but if I throw $100 on Cam Newton at 50-1,
that's great. If that would end up hitting or even coming close, I don't know. Don't you feel like Carolina has to win like 12 games for him to win the MVP, right? You think they're going to win that many games?
They need to get into the playoffs. They need to win about 9 or 10 games. They need to get into the playoffs, and they need to go on a run. And once they go on the run,
is a 13, 14 win, 12 win team, man, every year.
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We're going to have to wait and see what happens here with Carolina. I think he's got the weapons. I think he's got the ability to have his stats padded thanks to Christian McCaffrey and the amount of receiving work that he does.
So why don't we give Christian McCaffrey the MVP? Let's work on that.
You can work on that if you want.
60-1.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's got to be a quarterback. It's going to be one of the guys, obviously.
I have a sneaking suspicion, by the way, that Christian McCaffrey gets hurt this year.
Oh, don't say that.
No, I'm telling you. I'm sorry.
I'll take Carson Wentz 12-1. I'll take a shot there, but I don't have a strong opinion on it.
I'll take Matt Ryan at 20-1. Well, I know you don't like the Falcons.
No, I do like the Falcons. I don't mind them. I don't mind them in like offense and scoring. I just don't think they're a great team.
All right. Well, I mean, listen.
I don't think the MVP can be on a 9-win team.
Okay.
This is not like baseball where Jacob deGrom wins 4 games and they look at the analytics and give him Cy Young. The way that the MVP is voted just seems to be always on the really great team.
Take a look at this, because we're looking at this from a betting standpoint. It's not necessarily about that. It's, Mahomes at 4.5 to 1.
There's not a lot of value to waste.
There's no value there. No. Aaron Rodgers at 12 to 1. I mean, maybe there's some value there. Andrew Luck, I can't trust. Carson Wentz, I'm okay at 12 to 1. Drew Brees, this Saints team, I'm sorry, it's not sure a passing offense here, and I'm not into that. I can't see it going to Brady again. Rivers, Wilson, Roethlisberger, these guys are all at 20 to 1. I'd rather go with Matt Ryan for that as well. And then listen, I'll take Cam Newton. I'll take the Panthers as a dark horse NFC team.
All right.
I like DJ Moore. I like the fact that Curtis Samuel is there. I like the fact that not only are they bringing back Greg Olsen, but on top of that, they also have a guy in Ian Thomas there who can also play the tight end spot and catch passes. I just think at 50 to 1, I think that it's an interesting option.
Yeah, that's what this is about. Is you take a shot on these at the beginning of the season, and you made a good point. I mean, it's a $50, $100, $200 bet. And you take a shot there. Like at the beginning of the season when we were in where was it? Where was the Vegas? The winter meetings? Yeah, the winter meetings last year was in Las Vegas. So and the FSGA, TA, whatever it is going to be there this year, by the way. But I put let's see, where's my ticket here? Somewhere. I put let's see, it is wasting time here. 200 on the can you see that? It's probably not. But anyway, it's the Cardinals to win the World Series. I could have got better odds now than I even got then.
So the St. Louis Cardinals?
Yeah, the St. Louis Cardinals. So it turns out to be a bad bet, but you take your shot and you go from there. And so 200 is what I did, and that's my threshold for doing a future like that. Now on win totals, I'll go a lot more, but on these big futures with big odds, I will go less. So anyway, I'll take a shot there. My long shot, I'll go McCaffrey for my long shot. Since you like Carolina, I'll jump on that one, and then I'll go Wentz MVP. So our final one here is the comeback player of the year, and this is FanDuel has this. DraftKings does not. So this is one that I picked up on FanDuel. Why I wanted to do this, because it's just really interesting to me. Like these names and how they came up with them. I don't know what you thought about it, but there were like a lot of names of guys that like were okay. Like, don't even need to be on the list here. But I guess someone will win the comeback player of the year, and To me, when I look at it, Le'Veon Bell sticks out to me at 6-1. But again, would the NFL give him comeback player of the year for sitting out a year? I don't know. It's a strange one for me here.
Yeah, that's a tough one there. I don't know if I would. I didn't even touch the Le'Veon Bell one. You look at Jimmy Grapes at 3-1 as a possibility. Sure, okay, but I mean, like, again, if we're talking about where you want to place the value here,
yeah, please help me out.
Well, yeah, exactly.
This was not this. This is one of those where I feel like we could do well. Now Fournette is 32-1, but would you consider him comeback player of the year? I don't know that I would even consider him.
But I'd look at Devonta Freeman at 20-1.
Yeah,
I know you don't like it, but I mean, listen,
possible. How about Delaney Walker 44-1?
That's actually not bad. I just think that that the Titans are such lame duck teams that they're not going to end up doing it. I actually looked at, if you want to talk about a tight end, 26-1. Give me some Hunter Henry, who has the ability to have one of those Ebron-esque type seasons.
That could be a good one too. You're right. I like that a little bit more. And then another one too that's a possibility is Earl Thomas, who arguably was one of the best defensive players in the NFL over the last few years. He's 17-1. But I don't know. Would they give a comeback player of the year to a defensive player too? That also has to factor in. So there simply are names on this that I think have no shot.
Yeah.
Because they played last year and they played a lot. Like Aaron Rodgers at 20-1. Like, would he even be considered for comeback player of the year? He played like 10 games, didn't he? So, Geis is 13-1, but I don't even trust his health. I wouldn't do that. And Garoppolo I would stay away from. So yeah, just some fun things to do. And if you have a FanDuel account, you can bet on these. I just thought that we would bring them up for the end.
I like it. All right. Well, there you go. Oh wait, we didn't even do Super Bowl picks, did we?
No, we didn't. I thought maybe we'd do that Friday.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
save it for Friday.
Yeah, I think let's save that for. I'd like to have another preseason go a little bit. Let's go a little bit. Yeah. Let's get rid of Thursday's games. Let's make sure there's no injuries or anything like that.
Want to see who else is in the best shape of their life.
Right. You're right. Let me real quick, and we'll spend more time on this Friday night when we'll give the final picks. And look, it's still very early in terms of college to look at next week's games, but we'll do that on Friday. In terms of this Saturday, as we talked about, there are two games on Saturday night. The first one is Florida. They're going to be taking on Miami, and they're playing this game in Orlando. Right now, it looks like the Gators have moved up to 7.5-point favorites. They opened up at about 7. It's up to 7.5. All the money is going to come on Florida. Miami's total is 47. They're going with a freshman quarterback, somebody who played a little bit last year. The story with Miami, Howard, is new coach Manny Diaz took over for Mark Richt. Mark Richt just at the end of last year, just said, "I'm done." It was kind of weird, but I think that no Miami fan was upset with that. And so they put Manny Diaz in, so he's a very big defensive coach. Dan Mullen, his Gators last year were a very big defensive team, so I would be leaning toward under 47 points in this one, at least initially. It's just so hard not knowing what Miami's going to look like at all, because going into the college football season, what happened was Ohio State, they signed the kid from Georgia, Justin Fields. He's going to end up starting for them. And so their quarterback that thought he was going to start, Tate Martell, he left to go to Miami to be the starter. And Howard, guess what? He's not the starter anymore. So there's a lot of question marks with Miami going in. It'll be a dangerous game. I would expect the Gators to win in a low-scoring game and this to go under. But come Friday night, we'll give a final opinion on that. And then Arizona taking on Hawaii. If there's only one way I could go, it would be Hawaii in their opening game in Hawaii, first game of the season. Arizona's chilling in Hawaii. We know how that usually goes for the opponent. And the Rainbows are supposed to be pretty good. The total is 74. It's a late game also on Saturday night. So the line was 12. It's down to 11. So some of the money is coming in on Hawaii. They played this game 2 years ago in Arizona, and they ended up winning 47-28. Different team, by the way, Arizona, than they are now. So that's kind of the way that the lines are trending. The second game, not the sexiest game on the board, but my leans right now would be toward the under, also toward taking the Gators minus 7.5 with maybe buying a half a point. and also taking Hawaii for sure, plus the points at home in their opening game. It's probably the only way I would do it. An opening night game, anything can happen, and you're going to take the road team minus almost 2 touchdowns? No way.
I like where your head's at, Craig. I do.
So Friday night, we'll be back. We'll give our picks there. We got a lot more props to go over. We'll take our first look at the Thursday college football games of next week. And then I cannot wait for next Tuesday because we got 20 college games next weekend, and then we got the NFL the week after that.
It's going to be so good, so good. You guys are going to have to stick around. We're going to do it again. Tuesday, we start off with the lines. Friday is the day that we make our picks, not just for college, but for the Westgate Super Contest
as right.
Well, that's getting already. Oh,
I saw the emails coming in. I saw that email from Al. So Super Contest back-to-back. Can't wait for that another year. For those of you guys who don't follow the Westgate Super Contest, you can access all of the data and all of the records for the last few years online. And so for those people who say that they're good and they did well or whatever, there's full transparency there. You check last year. I think what was I know your name Bender was there, but what was it? Was it Fantasy Alarm or was it
Wager Alarm?
Okay, so you check out the Wager Alarm account and compare it to almost anybody who does these sort of things, live streams and picks. You're going to find that we were among the top last year. And I know, Howard, it was your first year doing it. It was like my third year. So I really think that this year we can pull into that, like, that 60% range, like 58% range and try and get in the top 10 of this thing and win some big money.
We were 3 wins off of the money last year. I say we move in and we get the I like that look. Look at you.
And my favorite part of the live streams was we did so well, and every week I would come on here and be like, "Damn, we went 3-1, 4-1." You'd be like, "Oh, but we lost that one game." I'm like, "You don't understand. We're doing well." You're like, "No, I can't believe we took this team. We shouldn't have done it. We would have went 5-0." I'm like, "No, we're doing good. We're doing good." And you're like,
I strive for perfection.
It's hard to win. It is hard to win.
I know it is.
Of
course it is. I get that it's hard to win. I just strive for perfection. For the first year that I was doing it, am I glad where we finished? Absolutely, dude.
Really well.
We crushed last year. We did really, really well. So we take that next step forward. That's going to do it for us here on the Wager Alarm live stream. Tune in Friday night when Craig and I are making more picks, breaking more things down, giving you some Super Bowl odds to take a look at. That's going to do it for us. Big thanks to Matt Sells for our production today. For Craig Mish, I'm Howard Bender. This has been Fantasy Alarm and Wager Alarm. We'll catch you next time.